The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides by the inequities of the selfish and the tyranny of evil men. Blessed is he who in the name of charity and goodwill shepherds the weak through the valley of darkness, for he is truly his brother's keeper and the finder of lost children. And I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger those who attempt to poison and destroy my brothers. And you will know my name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon thee.
Damn, out of smokes again. Guess it's time to take the 8-6 out for a little spin.
By far the most popular and played game mode in Skullgirls Mobile has to be prize fights, since its rewards are plentiful whether be during and after its duration. Those rewards are most of the time extremely useful and very practical for beginners, but with the constant score increase it's becoming harder to acquire them. As such, today I would like to share a couple of tricks, tips, and others to help out those who may require it. At this point in time I believe I'm one of the most qualified to talk about it, but at the same time I have been playing for a very long time, and I acknowledge not everyone comes close to have the same collection that I do. So take this advice with a grain of salt if you're just starting off. But without further ado, let us start with the utmost basic aspect, the player itself.
Las trepidantes aberturas de What the hell?
The following are gonna sound like rather mundane and basic advice, but sometimes you gotta go back to the very basics to progress any further. The first and most important detail is to always stay calm. It's very easy for us to consider that we'll fuck it up when fighting a strong opponent, and I'm not outright suggesting to completely relinquish that thought, but only reduce it to a minimum. Obviously you'll have to carry specific fighters to certain situations, you can't steamroll everything. But having a neutral state of mind during the fight is by far the best one can do to concentrate. Another factor that may be of support can be music. I'll admit that the songs from Skullgirls are being a bit repetitive for me, so I turn it down and put my own to make the grind slightly less tiresome. On the opposite side of the spectrum, maybe you just prefer complete silence.
Shut the fuck up!
Which works well enough, but personally, it can get a bit tedious. Finally, the most important detail is knowing your own limits. Obviously you won't be able to beat everything at first, so the best option is to tread through calm waters before being able to confront the storm. Also, you're not outright forced to fight the highest fighter score teams, but naturally, going after them will ultimately be the more rewarding. And those would be the most general tips I'd give to help out any player, but I assume you didn't come here only to be told to focus better. So let us break through the specifics of prize fights. When playing prize fights, everyone has the same goal in mind.
The oldest energy server in Minecraft.
And that is to make it up to the top 10% rewards threshold. However, like I said before, scores keep on increasing, which in turn ends up getting to the 10% progressively harder. For simplified reference, we'll establish our goal around 30 million, which is a considerable amount, but still fairly achievable. The following formula showcases how scores are calculated. The short version would be that the most rewarding team to face off against would be a high fighter score 1, with a multiplier on it, while also carrying high fighter score fighters. Of course, you could always try to use your best characters against every team, but such thing has its issues. First, given that the game uses an energy bar mechanic to limit fighter usage, you'd be running out of refills and Theonite very quickly. On the other hand, if you're a stingy fucker, you'd simply waste a lot of time. Second, I consider it's important to raise all the fighters on a similar level, as well as also level up fodder for any desirable future projects. My main method, while not the fastest, is carrying one main fighter for the first 30 fights and grind fodder on the back, then switch to 2 mains and 1 fodder for the rest, and should it be necessary, all mains. By this method I even developed a small pattern, which has the purpose of streamlining the scoring process. Now sure, this can be a bit counterintuitive for maximum exploitation of the formula, but honestly it's what I grew accustomed to, and I don't see it changing anytime soon. A quick fact is that in general it takes me from 50 to 60 consecutive wins to get to the 30 million by doing this. But my best advice would maybe have to be that you find the most appropriate grind method for you, since it's probably not tailor-made for everyone. Now that we have more or less a good understanding of how to score easily, it's time to take a look at a couple variants that have good sweeping potential, as well as defenders that one must always look out for. Before going in, I will set a few rules. For starters, I will only cover 5 attackers and defenders, given that obviously there's a lot of excellent characters, but covering them all would be way too time consuming. Next will be tier variety, because not everyone can build a diamond, let alone a gold. Finally, Lovecrafted is excluded since I already talked about her before and we know she's excellent. With this in mind, let us start with the offensive characters.
28 stab wounds.
Harlequin and Toad Warrior share a similar spot because they both have simple but very efficient signature abilities, base attack, and opponent control. The former is a prize fight reward, so beyond a shadow of a doubt you should get your hands on one. Debelicious holds off in the title of the best silver, thanks to good buff and debuff control, combined with the Chaos Marquee for further damages. Her potential disadvantage would be that she's frail, so careful play is required. Bioexorcist is a good contender for the best gold, but since the gold tier has a lot of excellent stuff, it could be up to debate. Anyhow, her main role is leeching the health from the opponent in a way akin to a heavy bleed and heavy regeneration. The potential of long shots is massive because it doesn't act like a debuff, therefore ignores immunity and equivals. Buzzkill, like Delicious, is also frail, but her sky-high strength makes up for it, coupled with heavy bleed, and being able to gain permanent and rage for further power. However, the frailty factor on the highest streaks can become more notorious, which will require a support of some kind. Class Cutter is a difficult variant on the sense that you'll need a lot of attack to extract the most out of her. In addition to it, you'll want a mix of multi-hit attacks and single-hit ones if you want to profit from both abilities, but if you pull it off, you'll be sweeping teams with next to no struggle whatsoever.
Oh, call an ambulance! Call an ambulance! But not for me!
On to the subject of defenders. Dreadlocks is the most well-known, and for good reason. Since the early days of Skullgirls Mobile, she's been giving shit to every fighter, because of her excellent damage reflect, and heavy bleed on critical hit. It's because of the latter that you'll see Bloodbath and Bells used against her all the time, and it's also because of this that some people pair her with That's All Folks, to negate any critical. Resident Evil is PTSD incarnate. Everyone has struggled with his armors and stuns in the past, and while nowadays some could consider him a shadow of his former self, those people are only 75% wrong. His high health and decent ability proc chances still make him a big threat for any fool who ventures unprepared. Assassin's Greed is a complete package: great health, excellent recovery, and opponent blockbuster check by removing health upon usage. The obvious strategy would be using special moves only, and depending on the character it works. But her Achilles heel is inverse polarity, melting her health away with little effort should it ever be inflicted. Splitting Image is a recent fighter, and at first everyone thought she'd be niche, but we were all wrong. Turns out her great health coupled with permanent immunity and constant recovery are some extremely valuable traits, while the meter gain and precision when facing a Philia, Fukuit, or light fighter isn't that prevalent, it's still appreciated as a minor check. The main method of countering her would have to be for the player to intentionally lose enough health should they want to debuff splitting, or use just a hard hitter like Harlequin. My main advice would be to set her as frontrunner, to abuse immunity as soon as possible. Immoral Fiber is essentially a kamikaze. When she dies, she'll remove a large amount of health from the player, on higher streaks always being all of it due to health bonuses. In addition to this, there's the more subtle ability of healing any damage her teammates may have suffered. This in short makes it important to carry a precision killer like Somersault, or a hexer like Red Velvet, to safely defuse the time bomb. Before I go in discussing the prize fights individually, I must say since I don't have invested characters on silver tier, I cannot comment on silver prize fights or show me your moves. Besides, the gold ones tend to be the most popular anyway.
Oh no, a wall.
It's a pretty basic prize fight, where anyone can achieve easy long shots. Bloodbath and friends are likely to be in teams, so make sure to have a heal blocker or cursor handy. Again, it's an easy prize fight given you can recover your health real easy. With enough care you can potentially just run glass cannons, but the long shot potential is somewhat low. This is a strange one, it's not hard nor easy. The most I can say about it is to watch out when the opponents have lower health than yours, given they power up that way.
Wow!
It's a similar case to that of Game of Thrones, in which glass cannons can thrive in it. Probably the most annoying kind of fighters would be those with unflinch, so watch out with those. I hope you enjoy the prospect of the opponent having DB3 set up within the first 5 seconds of the fight. The random 10-second debuffs aren't really that much of an issue in my opinion, but if they really bother you, just use immunity, and off you go. This prize fight is mostly bothersome when you use several buffs. It's easier said than done to use fighters who don't use them, but that's probably the best strat. Also, word of advice, this only affects buffs with timer. Those without timer or permanent are safe game. Considered by many as the best one, Val's prize fight allows for potentially insane long shots as long as you can debuff the opponent. You'll see a lot of people use 12-hour XP boosts, and for good reason. It's just that easy. This one is still a bit too fresh, but from what I can tell it's all about a mix of position control and the juggle between immunity and curse. You can always go for the fatigue gamble, but be sure to have a backup plan should you get stunned.
Why do they keep getting these mobs?
By far my personal favorite, what makes it good is that you can sweep anything with little effort as long as a debuff is on the opponent. Where Val's is more about constant setup, Eliza's is about imminent damage. A good prize fight to train your combo game since it rewards large ones with extra damage per hit. If you're skilled, it's likely you can achieve damage levels higher than in Bloodsport. There's not much to comment out of this, you just have faster special move cooldown. Best I can say is to look out for Bellis with Merry-Go-Rilla. Oh boy! Everyone becomes budget overclocked, and overclocked becomes fucking invincible.
That's immoral.
Remember what I said about second to none about immunity. The same applies here except it's mandatory. Unless you have a guaranteed method of critical hits, you're pretty much open to the enemy.
Mission failed. We'll get him next time.
It's not a bad prize fight. You can get some decent long shots here, but you want to watch for Assassin's Creed in particular.
Bong!
It's the same as Bloodsport, except it lasts 2 days instead of 3, but doesn't need Eliza in defense. As long as you don't get hit, there's no modifier whatsoever.
Is there something about that you don't understand?
This is an inverse situation to that of Night School, on the sense that debuffing is discouraged. The punishment though is far more harsh, giving the opponent free enrage and regeneration.
Mamma mia!
The prospect of being constantly under the effect of armor break and high streaks is not enjoyable, so bring recovery. By far the worst, off-tempo's effect is extremely bothersome. Granted, one is always can play with immunity, but I still think that 5 combo hits is way too easy for a debuff to kick in. Just fuck this prize fight. The armor only serves as an additional yet slim layer of annoyance. Other than that, not a bad one. Medici Pit Fighting 2, Electric Boogaloo. For real, you better not get hit, or you might eat a free stun. Getting all your blockbusters depleted and your special moves into cooldown is certainly bothersome, but the trick to avoid this is simple. Don't use blockbusters. The worst of the elementals, since every light fighter becomes a stall fest by gaining very strong buffs every 10 seconds. I'd criticize the 5-second doom after haste expiration, but I'm too busy cheesing it with Parasite Weave.
It's the size of this walnut, except way smaller.
Since we have now discussed the most essential elements of prize fights, I'd like to take this last segment to explain how the hell did I achieve over a 1,000 win streak.
Wow, that was pretty brutal even by my standards.
No backsies.
I always believed that getting past a 1,000 wins was possible, but no one had achieved it yet. So given that I already had a good prize fight track record, I pretty much went ahead to claim the goal first. I decided to go with Eliza prize fight, since it was easy as hell and allowed for quick sweeping with almost any variant capable of debuffing. Another advantage was this update to defenses, where you are restricted to have at least one fighter that matches the prize fight theme, thus a lot of Elizas would be placed, and more often than not they were uninvested, making the battle ultimately a 2 versus 3 in a way. Having a large collection posed a huge advantage, since I could organize teams consisting of 1 or 2 sweepers and a failsafe in case things got messy, and messy they got on the occasion, to the point I had to use blue screen, of all things. By constant abuse of this, I was capable of fighting for long enough that enough time would pass for a character to have enough energy and be used twice more. The highlights would be Lovecrafted and Class Cutter thanks to Heal Block and Deathmark, Jawbreaker with her sheer strength, Overclocked thanks to the DDoS marquee and great durability, and Bloodbath with her Sekhmet stun locking, and bleed stall tactics. In total it would take me an hour to achieve on average 30 win via this method, and overall the total wins of the first day were 350, the second 400, and the third 361. That also begs the question, why 1111 specifically? I just thought it'd be funny to leave it at that, no other reason. That and I wanted to surpass the billion score. Contrary to popular belief, yes, I did eat and sleep in between sessions. Had it been continuous 24/7 playtime I would have reached 2000 wins most likely, as well as a potential reason to wear glasses. Also, no, I did not perform any in-game purchase, which would seem ridiculous if the average person sees my collection. But remember, I've been playing for a very long time, so with reason I have this many fighters. Finally, aside from proving that it was doable, what was my true motivation? To aim for a 1000 wins? To be honest, it was mostly self-approval, as in a way of admitting I'm good at the game. I'm usually at by with somewhat low self-esteem, and often downgrade any achievement I get. So I suppose setting the bar to absurd levels, and surpassing it is a way of validating my skill in prize fights. At least that's how I see it. So in conclusion, what would be the main takeaways from this video? Well, I think the most important aspects to leave with would be the following. Find methods that can help you concentrate in one way or another, as long as it does the trick it works well enough. Then try to achieve a prize fight grind method that can both balance out high scoring and fodder leveling. Several variants will be of help during your journey, so be sure to invest in them, and in case of doubt you can always ask about their qualities. Last but not least, this prize fight tier list, it can be subjective and slightly biased, but I'd also say somewhat accurate. But above all, you must know that my sanity has long been lost, but is compensated by a semi-chill attitude online. Now go out there and get yourself that goddamn shiny primed. Or if you're lucky, maybe even a shiny love crafted.